Hello again, this is How To Bob, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use the Chicago Electric chainsaw sharpener. Now, I've mounted mine to a piece of 1x board so that I can have it movable, portable, and it's all set up outside here. So I'm going to take my chain and put it in the chain vise with my teeth facing to the right, and I'm going to put my chain stop over, and then I want to push the chain back against the chain stop. You want to look up the specs on your chain. Mine is set to a 30-degree angle. You can see here's the cutter, and it's at a 30-degree angle to the chain. So it just goes up and down basically. So I'm going to set up my stop here, and you can see the lock knob here. I want to adjust that so that the cutter comes right up against the teeth of the chain. Just barely touches it, and I just keep adjusting it until it gets to where it just barely touches the chain, and that should be sufficient. If you need to add more, you can add more. But I've got my chain set up and in the vise, and now I just keep pushing it down till it gets right up to it, and once I get it there, I'm good on that. I can lock my thing. And now I'm going to check the depth. I don't want to go too deep to damage the chain, but I want it to cut the entire tooth, so I just keep pushing it down, and then I lock it in with the lock knob on the depth gauge here. And again, I just keep trying it until I get it just right. Not too deep that it hits the chain itself, but I just wanted to get the cutting edge of the cutter on the chain. So I just keep adjusting it until it gets just deep enough. So once I get the depth set, I can go ahead and mark my first link here so I know when I've been all the way around. And what I'm going to do is cut all the way around one side. Now you can see this is a vise handle that I squeeze, and it pinches the chain right where it's going to be cutting. So I hold that every time that I come down and cut. So I'm going to turn it on and go ahead and make my first sharpen or cut here. And just pull it down with the vise handle and kind of rock it back and forth, and it'll stop at the right depth. Now once I'm done, I rotate it to the next tooth, and the chain stop will click once it gets there. And then I can slowly move it back just a little bit, make sure it's tight. Then I'll clamp my vise clamp down with the handle and bring down the cutter onto the teeth. And it's basically that simple. Just repeat this process all the way around the chain until you get all the teeth sharpened on one side. You can see I've gotten all the way around to the one side. So I rotate it here. See my mark. So now what I'm going to do is adjust it for the other teeth, and I've got it set at 30, so I'm going to turn it to 30 degrees the opposite direction and tighten up my vise holder. And it's basically the same process all over again. Use the chain stop, and once you get it all set, you just bring your cutter down and it cuts the perfect angle every time. Very simple. Once you get the first one done, you just rotate your chain around until it hits the stop, and then what I always do is butt it up against the stop just to make sure, and then use the vise clamp handle and bring down the cutter, and repeat this until you go all the way around and get every tooth. And at this point, once you get all the way around the chain, your teeth should be pretty sharp. So there's one last step that we'll need to do once we get all the teeth. You can see I'm down to the last one here. We're going to use a depth gauge, and this one is, according to the manufacturer, a .025. You can see it's printed on the depth gauge here, and what this does is it lowers the back rake right here so that it's .025 away from here. The back rake sets the depth of your cut, and you want that to be even. So with the depth gauge, it's really easy. You take the depth gauge and you set it on 2 cutter teeth, and you leave your back rake exposed. There's your cutter teeth, and you put it between the 2 cutter teeth, and your back rake is what's going to get filed down with the flat file. Once you get that filed down, then you'll have to go back and round it over a little bit. So we're going to take our depth gauge and just set it in there, and you can see that the back rake here protrudes a little bit, so I'm going to take my flat file and just basically run it across there. It's not removing a whole lot because the chain is fairly new and in good shape, but the more you sharpen the chain, the more you'll have to remove from the back rakes here. So once I get done with that, I can move to the next one and rotate around the entire chain. And it's always good to mark the chain to make sure you get all the way around the chain. And this really only needs to be done on one side. It's not necessary to do both sides. Now once I got done, I'm going to go ahead and round over because that helps it travel through the wood a little bit better. You just round over the back rake. And that's how you sharpen your chain using the Chicago Electric Chainsaw Sharpener. I'm How To Bob. Thanks for watching.